Welcome to the Dusty Jobs podcast from Imperial Systems. Industry knowledge to make your job easier and safer.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Dusty Jobs podcast. Today we have Tomm Frungillo joining us again. How you doing, Tom?
Great, Donovan. How are you?
Good. We're glad to have you on again this season. And so, Tom, tell us a little bit about your role here at Imperial, and then we'll get into what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah. My role is Director of Sales and Marketing, kind of a role I've been doing for a long time within the industry here at Imperial Systems for 4 years now, about 4 years next month.
Yeah.
So going great. We've had a great, successful 4 years since I've been here, starting before I was here with growth and taking off. Great year last year. This year is going fantastic.
Yeah, and you still help out with sales, right? You help cover some of our area out there, help all the regional reps with issues or things that come up, right?
I do.
Yeah.
I kind of help work with all of our territory managers, sales engineers, aftermarket, and then I have my own territory out west, the western part of the United States, and down in Latin America.
Yeah, not only overseeing things, but also still hands-on. You're not removed from what's really going on in the industry that much at all.
It's the only way to do it.
There you go.
Got to keep in it.
That's why we love having you around, Tom, because you do such a great job with all that. So, but also not only in marketing directing, but you have a pretty strong history in the mining fields, right? You helped out with dust collection and mining for I don't know how many years was that?
Yeah, with a previous company, I worked, I actually did all our focus markets. So these were things that we got into that required a little bit more specialty within the dust collector itself or the dust collector system itself.
Gotcha.
And one of those was mining.
Yeah.
A lot in Latin America, in the southwestern United States, and in Canada.
Right. Yeah, I mean, mining's a big industry. They're doing it everywhere.
Yep.
But, yeah, so today, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to touch a little bit off on mining and talk a little bit about your experience, talk a little bit about how Imperial can help, and just what that looks like. So,
right.
So for you personally, we just touched. You've been doing this for a while, but yeah, I mean, what's been your experience in mining? What have you seen? Where have you been? What's happened there? I'd love to hear a little bit of your story of your mining experience.
Yeah. Well, we at Imperial Systems and other companies I've been with, we've focused on above ground mining. So I think most people think mining, you're in a tunnel, you're underground, and of course those exist.
Right.
But we focus on the above ground mining.
Gotcha.
And that creates a huge amount of dust and air pollutants as they mine, as they process the ore. And so that's where we come in, providing equipment to control that dust and air pollution of that processing.
Yeah.
And there's open pit mines all over the world, as you mentioned, heavy in South America, Chile, Peru, Brazil, Colombia, things like this, areas like this. Plenty in the United States, mostly southwestern United States, for the ores that we would go after.
Yeah.
Central, western Canada, over in Indonesia, down in Australia, China, throughout the world. There's the large open pit mines.
Anywhere that there's something valuable that we could use, we get it out of the ground.
Absolutely.
They're digging there.
Right.
Right. And so we're not talking about, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs with the coal hat on. They're not like that.
Not so much, no.
Right. So if we're going, if someone who has never been to a mine before, let's just say, and you would roll up to a mine site, what would we be looking at? A big hole in the ground with roads, or what are we looking at?
A massive hole in the ground, usually with staggered steps, large steps where they start, and they just continuously go down further and further and further until they get to a point where they can't go anymore. But they're basically, cutting and blasting and pulling this ore out of the earth. And in an interesting way, some people may look at it and think it's terribly ugly because we're somewhat destroying part of the planet, that piece of the planet.
Right.
Others look at it as a beautiful thing because the things that we're mining go into things that we use every day, and it's got to come from somewhere.
Right.
So if it's done right, it's not necessarily a terrible thing. But a lot of these mines are in beautiful places. They're remote, but they can be a beautiful place if you look at it in the right way.
And I'm sure a lot of these places, I mean, I've seen a lot of surface mining around Pennsylvania, and as long as the recovery's done well, you might not even know anything was there in the first place.
Yeah, and these are so massive though that they're going to be there for a long time, and
Right.
and you're not going to hide them down the road. So maybe that's some of the negative about it, but it's part of things that human beings, I guess, have to do. We have to take care of our natural resources, but hopefully utilize them in the right way because they go into all the things that almost every human being utilizes in their
Right.
life.
So what are some of the mines you've been to in the past? What were they digging there?
Yeah, well, we focused previously, and even with Imperial Systems, we'll focus mostly on the copper mines. Copper's huge, goes into a lot of different components and products. And so the copper mines, I've been to many mines in Arizona and in Nevada and in British Columbia and in Chile and Peru and in Mexico. And also gold mines.
Yeah.
Some silver. So there's the precious metals, but copper is kind of the go-to mine for what we focus and concentrate.
We can really help out a copper mine, it sounds
Absolutely.
like what you're saying there.
Yeah.
So you go to a copper mine, there's this hole in the ground, they're pulling out copper, and then what's the next step? What's the next thing that happens? Is that where the dust really starts to get created, or?
Well, the dust is created where they're processing. So they're taking out ore and then they're processing it down. So it goes through a crushing, a primary, a secondary, tertiary crushing. There's screening plants.
Yeah.
There's mills. There's ball mills and things like that. And especially the crushing side and the screening side all requires dust collection.
So they're pulling this ore out of the ground, they're bringing it up to the top of the pit, and then, I mean, they don't want to truck all of that somewhere else, right? So right there on site, they're starting to process that
Correct.
product and get what is the actual product that they need out of it, the useful product on site.
Correct.
So that's where it goes into a mill or a grinder. Am I saying all this correct?
Yeah, that's correct. It goes into a crushing and then screening and then conveying until it gets to the product that they create there that is then sent off for further processing.
Gotcha.
And it's massive. It's massive. The vehicles that are they do have. You mentioned the roads. There's roads all over the mines, right? Mm-hmm. These roads are made for trucks that are as big as this room.
Wow.
Okay.
You can't see it, but we're in a pretty big room.
We're in a pretty big room. And height-wise, width-wise, length-wise, that's how big some of these trucks are, and even larger. And
I think I've seen some of those tires going down the highway. They're like 10-foot tires.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're massive.
Yeah.
Very expensive, very heavy duty, a lot of maintenance that has to go into these things, as you can imagine. If you go to some of these mining shows, they have a lot of these mining, trade shows out in Las Vegas and other places, and you walk around there in awe if you've never seen it before because of how huge these pieces of equipment are. It can be a very
the Tonka trucks, right? We're talking about Tonka trucks, but big Tonka trucks.
Slightly bigger than the old Tonkas we used to play with, but yeah, that's what they look like. Potentially very dangerous place.
Oh yeah.
Because of the fact that these things are riding around and they're doing a job. And so if you're there visiting to analyze and help assess and see what's needed, very strict rules and regulations through MSHA that you have to go through, get trained on before you don't want to be out in an open pit mine not knowing what you're doing and where you're going.
Right.
These trucks can run over a pickup truck and not even know it.
Oh wow.
Not even know it.
Yeah.
And that's happened, unfortunately.
So there's that much material. It takes a truck that big to bring this material up, and then it starts to get processed. And then is that where a dust collector comes in? And so they're starting to take all of these things and they're crushing them. And then that's where all this byproduct is coming off. And Am I getting through this process?
Yeah, pretty much. These trucks dump, and then this ore is dumped into an area of the primary crusher. These are often gyratory crushers. So you got a big hole basically in this, and the ore falls in big pieces, and this thing just kind of gyrates and turns, and it's all size reduction all the way down the line.
Gotcha.
Until you get to a product that you can actually process.
Gotcha. Yeah. So during each step of that process, there's dust that's created.
Massive amounts.
Right, and that's where we, as Imperial Systems, with a dust collector, can help to cut down on that process so that people aren't breathing that in.
Yeah, and that it's not being exposed into the environment as much. Years ago, they didn't worry about it, especially because these are a lot of remote areas.
Right.
But a lot of, in the United States, the EPA, same thing, similar in Canada, and now in Latin America for years now, they've been cracking down on that. So where you cannot create all this particulate that's just released into the environment. You have to control it.
Yeah.
And they test it, and they make sure you're doing it right, and all these things. So it's a very important part of the process.
So it's not only helping the health, by capturing this, it's not only helping the health of those workers that are in close proximity to the equipment, but also basically everybody else in the world.
The environment.
Yeah, the environment, which we all depend on and enjoy.
Yeah.
So, so when you're looking at that, I mean, what are we talking about as far as what can Imperial, when you come to a mine site, how could we look at that and help people out? How can we help those employees? How can we continue to help the environment?
Well, usually the way it works is there's an engineering firm involved. So if they're going to put in a new mine, or if they're replacing some of the equipment that's already on the mine, they, like in a lot of industries, they'll come out with a spec that says, okay, we know how much air volume we need. We know what air permitting we need to meet the qualifications for that.
Right.
We know if we have space constraints where we want this thing to go. So we come in and just say, okay, we can meet all that. We can help you there. Of course, put proposals together. Most of the time, as Imperial Systems, we can do everything from build the equipment to install the equipment to service the equipment. Out there, it's generally just providing the equipment.
Gotcha.
They've got people on site there that are capable of installing pieces of equipment and process equipment much more complicated than the dust collector.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, they have a lot of stuff going on there.
So we won't get involved too much in that side of it like we would.
But we could if someone needed us to.
We could. Yeah. As we know, we have the capability to do that, but it's not usually the way. It's usually just building and providing the equipment to meet the requirements that they have.
Now, in this process, the dust that's coming off, is that typically still of some value, or is that usually just a refuge dust?
Generally refuse. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. It generally is. It's a very fine particulate, why it creates a problem, right? Right. Very, respirable. Bad for the environment in that it's a very fine, PM10, PM2.5, those things that the industry talks about.
Right.
That's what you're getting into. That's what we're collecting.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, Tom, they have these giant equipment all over the mine, right? These trucks are driving around. I mean, those have to be creating dust on their own, right? Just blowing around these mines, right? Yeah,
and there's a couple ways that we address that, or that they address it, and we can help them. One is they do constantly put water spray on the roads.
Yeah.
And that's not something we do. They call it dust control. It is dust control, but it's a misting dust control for roads. And they do a lot of that, and it's needed, okay? Because a lot of these places are in places that don't get a lot of rain.
Yeah.
So they have to make their own rain. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is, yes, you can imagine there's huge power supply requirements, transformer vaults, and then a lot of motor control centers that are operating all this equipment, this grinding and processing equipment and pulverizing equipment. And those are always in large rooms, vaults, transformer vaults.
Right.
And one of the things we do is provide dust collectors on the outside of those rooms that take ambient air, clean it, and put it into those rooms to keep positive pressure in those rooms and keep the dust out.
So this is not a dust collector that's collecting dust off a process. It's providing clean air into a space that needs to be eliminated. It can't have any dust in there.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I can imagine as things are getting more automated, there's more robotics involved in things that, computers. I mean, how often they tell you to blow out your computer at home, right?
Right.
If it starts acting a little funny, you got to clean it out. I can only imagine with giant trucks driving around and digging up the earth, that's got to be creating something that's just...
Well, right, and then you have these electrical rooms that there's the possibility of dust gets in there of arc fires and those sorts of nasty things, and so you want to keep that dust out of there. And there's no real way to do that effectively. Over the years, they've used a lot of HVAC type filters to try to process that air and keep it clean. So much dust that those HVAC filters get overwhelmed, and there's a huge cost to replace those, sometimes daily, certainly weekly. So you put a dust collector in there, that's cleaning itself, keeping that heavy load of dust to a minimum, and then you take that clean air that's coming out of it, pressurize that building.
Yeah.
Keeps the dust out.
Oh, so you're putting a positive pressure on it, so that any air that's you're actually trying to keep the air out. It's making it almost like an air force field.
Yeah, you've probably experienced you open a door and you get kind of a feel of air that's coming out to you.
Yeah.
That's positive pressure in that particular room.
Where it's really hard to open the door.
And then that's negative, of course.
Yeah.
And in this case, you want positive to keep the dust from coming in.
Right.
So that's an important aspect of it. We do a lot of that in mining, in other industries too, but in mining out there, it's really important.
Yeah, because if the HVAC system goes down, or you're changing those I can only imagine how much time that takes for someone to change the filters, make sure they're running right, and then if your unit goes down, your HVAC unit, you have no air circulating in those buildings.
Right.
And then what do you got to do? What are you going to do then? Prop open the door? You don't want to be propping open the door on the job site to get some air circulating, and then put a fan on it.
Not recommended, right?
No. So then if you have a positive pressure dust collector on that, it at least keeps the air flowing through there. It might not be 100% conditioned air, but it's something.
Yeah.
Keep those controls.
We've even tied it together with conditioned air. There is a way to do that, but oftentimes it's really just they will condition it, and then we will keep air going in there that keeps it pressurized, positive flow.
Right.
Keep that dust away from those controls and transformers.
And then if you already have these units on other parts of your process, why not just have all the same filters for everything, right? You have one unit, you know how they all service, you can have all the same filters. I got to imagine that's got to help the maintenance guys out there just know how they're working on just one piece of equipment as opposed to trying to figure out everything.
Yeah, and as you know, we supply cartridge filters for all makes of dust collectors. So we can certainly supply the hardware, the equipment to do this, but if they have something out there already, usually we can supply the filters that go in those too.
That's true. Yeah, we can help you out with any part of the process that you need there.
Absolutely.
So if someone's out there right now and they're working at a mine, or they're looking at maybe upgrading some equipment at a mine, or designing a whole new process for a mine, I mean, we could help out with all that, right, Tom?
We certainly can.
Yeah. So
and the beauty of our equipment, as you know, mining is a very heavy-duty, robust, harsh environment. And so both the dust that we're collecting and outside of the equipment. So the fact that we make our equipment standard is very heavy-duty, standard powder-coated, standard components that can take that kind of harsh environment. It lends itself to exactly what we do.
Oh, yeah. At Imperial, we build things that are able to hold up to the elements, and then handle some abuse. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely do that. So is there, if there's anybody out there and they're listening, they're just getting into mining, or they're new on a job site, I mean, would you have any advice for them on, just to watch out for their personal health? What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, they have a whole selection of PPE that most of these people have to wear depending on the process or the job that they're doing. So those are all controlled by the mine site themselves. And if those people don't comply with a lot of those operating parameters and controls, then they usually get asked to leave. So they're doing things oftentimes proper to begin with. But when they're creating these massive amounts of dust clouds and things by the process, then that's where we come in and provide the equipment that further helps them stay safe and healthy, and again helps the environment stay safe and healthy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is a great intro into mining and what we can do to help out. I don't know if you have anything else you want to follow up with or say, or.
Nothing in particular, other than, as you mentioned, I firmly believe we have the equipment, the best equipment in the industry to address these mining dust problems. And, we look forward to helping anybody we can, whether it's the engineering side, whether it's the end user side, or anywhere in between, in solving those problems and helping people stay healthy and the environment stay healthy.
Well, sounds good. Tomm, I just want to say thanks again for coming on. And everyone out there, if you want to learn more about Imperial Systems, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok. We have just about every social platform out there. So appreciate you guys listening. And I just want to say stay healthy and stay safe. And we'll catch up with you again next time.
Thanks for listening to the Dusty Jobs podcast. Breathe better, work safer.